When a man is primarily interested in you physically, one of the most telling signs is how quickly he gravitates toward intimacy without building any real emotional connection. He doesn't take time to learn who you are beneath the surface. You'll notice that the foundation of your connection is built around physical chemistry rather than emotional compatibility. From the beginning, things might move quickly, not because there's a strong emotional bond, but because there's an urgency he creates around closeness. He'll often compliment how you look, lean in when he talks, use touch as a way to accelerate comfort, and create moments that feel romantic on the surface. But if you strip away the physical part, there's little substance holding things together. You'll find that your conversations don't go deep. They tend to hover on surface-level topics or flirty banter, and whenever you attempt to steer things into something more meaningful, like your values, your past, your goals, he finds a way to sidestep it. It's not always obvious. He might laugh it off, change the subject, or even turn the conversation back to you in a way that feels sweet but cleverly avoids him opening up. This subtle avoidance isn't an accident. It's a way of keeping things light, fun, and non-committal. If you were to really pay attention, you'd notice that most of your time together feels like it's happening on a shallow, emotional wavelength, even if the chemistry feels intense. Now, chemistry can be misleading. Just because you feel a strong pull doesn't mean it's rooted in something healthy or sustainable. It's very easy to confuse attraction with connection. When a man is focused on the physical, he knows how to create moments that feel intense. Late-night texts, spontaneous meetups, passionate encounters. But they all have one thing in common. They revolve around gratification, not growth. He'll likely want to see you when it suits him, especially at times that revolve around comfort, like late evenings, or when there's no expectation of effort. You might notice a pattern where daytime plans are rare, or when they do happen, they're casual and lack intentionality. There's no effort to introduce you to his world, his friends, his family, his interests, because that would require a level of investment he doesn't intend to give. Think about the kind of questions he asks you. Are they about your dreams, your passions, your fears? Or are they more about what you like to do for fun, what you're wearing, or whether you're free tonight? A man who wants to build a connection will ask about the things that make you who you are, not just the things that make you desirable in the moment. He won't shy away from your complexity. In fact, he'll be drawn to it. But when his interest is only physical, he'll keep the focus on what serves the short term, not the long term. It becomes more about keeping the mood light, the attraction strong, and the emotional stakes low. What makes this particularly tricky is that he can appear charming, attentive, and even romantic, but only in ways that lead to the kind of connection he's after. He may say all the right things, text regularly, even show some signs of vulnerability, but it's never consistent, never deep enough to suggest he's investing emotionally. These breadcrumbs of attention can feel like signs of something more, but they're often just enough to keep you around without ever progressing toward a real relationship. This type of man knows that building emotional intimacy requires time, effort, and a willingness to show up beyond the highs. And if he's not in it for that, he avoids it altogether. He may not be doing it maliciously, but the effect is still the same. You're left wondering where you stand, feeling confused, overthinking every interaction, and yet still holding on because the moments of intensity are addictive. He doesn't encourage emotional depth because he knows it leads to accountability, to questions about the future, about commitment, about mutual effort. And that's not what he's here for. His goal is to keep things exciting without them ever becoming truly meaningful, to enjoy the perks of closeness without having to build the structure that holds a real connection together. In the end, it's not about what he says, it's about the pattern. Does he show up consistently? Does he invest in knowing you beyond attraction? Does he create space for you to feel safe, understood, and valued for more than your body? When the emotional component is missing, what's left is often an empty shell of connection, one that feels good in fleeting moments, but ultimately leaves you feeling unseen and unfulfilled. When a man is only interested in you physically, one of the clearest patterns you'll notice is that he's consistently inconsistent. At first, it might seem exciting. Spontaneous texts, unexpected calls, sudden plans that come out of nowhere. But if you take a step back, there's a deeper rhythm hidden underneath. He shows up when it suits him and disappears when it doesn't. He doesn't keep regular communication, doesn't follow through on plans unless they align with his comfort, and you're often left wondering where you stand. One moment he seems fully invested, attentive and charming, and then the next, he pulls away, goes silent, or becomes distant for no clear reason. It leaves you feeling confused, questioning if you did something wrong, when in reality, it's just a reflection of his priorities. This hot and cold behavior isn't a reflection of his feelings growing or fading. It's about access. He's present when he wants something and absent when he doesn't. The key detail is this: his involvement is on his terms. He doesn't make space for your needs, your schedule, or your emotional world. If you start to look closely, you'll realize that his presence has more to do with timing than commitment. He reaches out when he's bored, lonely, or craving attention, but he's rarely around when you need support, clarity, or consistency. You find yourself waiting for him to reply, checking your phone more often than you'd like, replaying conversations in your head just to make sense of why he suddenly pulled back again. It's not that he's completely unavailable. He shows just enough attention to keep you hooked. He knows when to send that well-timed message, when to be sweet or flirtatious, when to compliment you just enough to spark your interest again. But that interest never translates into effort. He might initiate conversations, but they don't lead anywhere meaningful. He might make plans, but they're vague or last minute. And when he does see you, the encounters often revolve around convenience. Nights are his preferred time, when there's no expectation of substance, no public presence, no pressure to define anything. You might notice that he rarely makes plans for the day, rarely includes you in anything outside of your time together, and almost never invites you into the parts of his life that reflect real investment. This inconsistency has a psychological effect. It keeps you off balance. You begin to crave the moments he shows up because they feel like proof that he cares. But it's not care, it's control. Not in the manipulative sense, but in the emotional dynamic that keeps you chasing something that isn't fully available. His pattern teaches you to tolerate uncertainty, to lower your expectations, to overanalyze mixed signals, and to accept breadcrumbs of attention in place of real presence. You might even start making excuses for him. Maybe he's busy, maybe he's bad at texting, maybe he's going through something, but deep down, there's a part of you that feels the truth. You know what consistency looks like, and this isn't it. A man who's truly interested in more than the physical will create stability. He'll want to build trust, and that requires being there, even when it's not convenient, even when nothing exciting is happening. But when someone only wants you physically, stability isn't necessary. What matters most to him is the high, the rush of attraction, the thrill of spontaneity, the gratification of getting what he wants without offering much in return. That's why he comes and goes. That's why he seems emotionally absent after you've spent time together. That's why you feel like you're constantly trying to interpret what his actions mean, hoping there's a deeper intention that never seems to arrive. This kind of inconsistency is often masked as being laid back, nonchalant, or carefree. He may act like he's just going with the flow, or that he doesn't like pressure or labels. But the truth is, he's avoiding responsibility. He's keeping things fluid because fluidity benefits him. It allows him to take without giving, to enjoy closeness without commitment, to engage without investing. And you're the one left doing the emotional labor, trying to decipher how he feels, wondering if you should bring up the lack of consistency, and questioning whether your standards are too high. It can feel addictive, this cycle of uncertainty followed by brief moments of attention. But consistency is a form of care. It's how someone shows that they're not just interested when it's easy, but also when it requires showing up repeatedly, respectfully, and with intention. When that's missing, what you're left with is a pattern that keeps you emotionally unsettled and deeply unsatisfied. even if the physical moments feel real in the short term. When a man only wants you physically, one of the most subtle yet powerful clues lies in the way he compliments you. At first, it can feel flattering. He tells you how beautiful you are, how amazing you look, how irresistible you seem in that outfit or with your hair a certain way. But over time, you begin to notice that his praise always revolves around the surface. It's your body, your face, your style, your physical presence that he acknowledges, not your depth, your mind, or your character. While compliments themselves aren't bad, everyone wants to feel desired. What matters is the scope of his appreciation. A man who's truly drawn to you as a whole person will see more than what meets the eye. He'll notice your insights, your resilience, your sense of humor, your values. But when he only wants you physically, he keeps his focus limited, as though the only valuable parts of you are the ones he can see or touch. This kind of attention can be confusing, especially when it's given passionately and consistently. It can feel like he's obsessed with you, infatuated even. He may send you flirtatious messages throughout the day, constantly remind you how sexy you are, or act possessive in a way that almost feels like love. But when you try to shift the energy to a different part of yourself, to your dreams, your work, your challenges, he seems to lose interest or steer the conversation back to how you make him feel. You could talk about something you're deeply proud of, and somehow he'll respond with a comment about how attractive you look when you're passionate. It sounds sweet, but it's a deflection. He's not meeting you on the level you want to be met. What's happening here is subtle objectification. He's making you feel seen, but only in the ways that serve his attraction. This becomes especially apparent when you think about the kinds of conversations you have. Are you able to be vulnerable around him? Does he ask thoughtful questions? Does he remember things you say that don't relate to your appearance or how you make him feel? When a man sees you as more than just someone he wants physically, he listens with real interest, not just when it leads back to desire. He'll ask you how your day went and actually care about the answer. He'll want to understand how you think, what shaped you, what you value. But if his investment is only physical, the questions he asks will always orbit around attraction. And the responses he gives will often feel like they're designed to keep the flirtation alive, not to build something meaningful. Another clue is how he reacts when you try to slow things down or redirect the energy of your interactions. If he's really interested in you, he'll adapt. He'll want to meet you where you are. But when a man only wants you physically, he becomes impatient or disinterested when intimacy isn't on the table. He might suddenly go quiet, cancel plans, or act cold when the vibe isn't sexual. It becomes clear that the engine of his interest is desire, not connection. And the compliments that once felt flattering start to feel narrow. You begin to crave being seen for more than just how you look. You want someone who sees your ambition, your quirks, your vulnerability, not just the version of you that fits a fantasy. It's easy to rationalize this kind of behavior, especially when it's wrapped in charm and affection. You might tell yourself that physical attraction is just his way of expressing interest, or that in time, he'll start to notice more about you. But if you've given him the chance to see deeper and he consistently chooses not to, that's not a sign of slow progress. It's a sign of where his attention stops. A man who truly values you doesn't need to be coaxed into caring about your depth. He's drawn to it naturally. He sees the way your mind works as just as beautiful as your face, and he shows that by the way he talks to you, listens to you, and stays present with you even when the moment isn't romantic. Pay attention to how you feel after your interactions. Do you feel enriched, valued, understood? Or do you feel reduced to just being desirable? If you find yourself constantly performing, constantly trying to impress, constantly leading with how you look, because that's what gets a reaction, then what you're receiving isn't real admiration. It's attention filtered through a limited lens. It's attraction without appreciation. And when that's all someone gives you, it's not about who you are, it's about what you represent in the moment. When a man only wants you physically, one of the clearest indicators is how he avoids defining the relationship. This isn't just about him not putting a label on it in the first week. It's about his ongoing resistance to clarity and commitment, even as time passes and emotional investment grows on your end. You may find that the connection feels strong at times, that you share moments of closeness, and even that your time together carries the energy of something deeper. But whenever the conversation shifts toward "what are we doing?" or "where is this going?", he becomes vague, dismissive, or uncomfortable. He might deflect with humor, change the subject, or say things like, "let's just see where this goes," or "I don't like pressure." These responses are not innocent. They're calculated ways to keep you in a space where he can enjoy the benefits of intimacy without stepping into the responsibilities of a committed relationship. What's important to understand is that when a man is emotionally invested, he wants clarity just as much as you do. He wants to know that you're on the same page, that you're both building towards something. But when his interest is primarily physical, ambiguity is the perfect environment. It gives him access without obligation. It allows him to dip in and out of your life without having to answer for his actions. And it creates just enough hope to keep you around, while never truly giving you anything secure to hold on to. You'll find yourself in a confusing emotional space, feeling connected one moment and totally unsure the next. It's like being in a relationship with no name, no rules, and no clear future. This type of behavior often comes with a false sense of progress. He may spend time with you, stay over, share jokes, have inside references, even act protective or affectionate. These things can make it feel like a relationship, but they're not rooted in commitment. They're rooted in comfort. He's comfortable with you. He enjoys your presence, but that enjoyment doesn't translate into devotion. When someone is genuinely serious about you, they want to claim the relationship. Not in a possessive way, but in a way that says, "You matter to me and I want to be intentional with this." If instead he keeps everything open-ended and undefined, it's usually because he doesn't want to be held accountable to the expectations that come with a real partnership. When a man avoids defining the relationship, it often puts you in the role of the emotional caretaker. You start doing the work of holding the connection together. You're the one initiating the hard conversations, asking where things stand, trying to read between the lines of his actions and words. This imbalance creates emotional fatigue. You spend more time analyzing the relationship than actually enjoying it. And the worst part is that the longer you stay in this gray area, the harder it becomes to walk away. You keep thinking, maybe he just needs more time, or maybe if I'm patient, he'll come around. But time alone doesn't change someone's intention. If he wanted more than just the physical connection, he would use that time to deepen your bond, not avoid defining it. There's also a pattern in how he responds to your needs. If you express that you want more clarity, more commitment, more depth, he may make you feel like you're asking too much. He might call you needy, say you're overthinking, or imply that you're ruining a good thing by trying to rush it. This tactic works because it makes you second-guess your own desires. You start to feel like the problem is you. But the reality is, your desire for clarity is valid. Wanting to know where you stand isn't pressure. It's emotional safety. And if someone truly values you, they want to provide that safety, not run from it. Even more telling is how he positions the idea of freedom. He might suggest that defining the relationship would ruin the fun or magic between you. But that's not true connection. That's convenience. Real relationships don't lose their spark because they gain definition. If anything, the definition creates room for trust, which strengthens the emotional and physical intimacy. When he resists that step, what he's really resisting is the shift from casual access to committed effort. Over time, this lack of definition starts to chip away at your confidence. You begin to question your worth, wondering why he won't commit, why he hesitates to take that next step, why you're good enough to be with, but not good enough to choose. But it's not about your worth. It's about his intentions. A man who only wants you physically has no incentive to change the arrangement. He gets what he wants without having to stretch, grow, or show up consistently. He benefits from the in-between, while you're left carrying all the emotional weight. When a man is only interested in you physically, one of the strongest signals is his complete lack of interest in your inner world. He doesn't try to understand what drives you, what scares you, what makes you feel alive. He's not curious about your past or how it shaped you, nor does he make an effort to explore what you want out of life. Instead, his attention remains focused on the here and now, especially the moments that revolve around pleasure and chemistry. When you try to open up, to share something vulnerable or meaningful, you might notice that he nods along, gives you a generic response, or quickly shifts the conversation back to something lighter, less emotionally involved. That shift is not accidental. It's a form of emotional self-protection. He doesn't want to go deeper because that depth comes with responsibility, with care, with the possibility of real connection, and he's not interested in investing in any of that. There's an emptiness that starts to form in the space between you. You're there physically, perhaps even spending long stretches of time together, but emotionally you feel alone. He may laugh with you, touch you, say sweet things that sound romantic, but those words often feel hollow. There's no follow-through, no evidence that he's truly internalizing what you share. The relationship starts to feel one-sided, like you're offering parts of yourself that aren't being met, received, or even noticed. And what makes this particularly painful is that you may really like him. You may feel a genuine connection and see potential. So you keep trying. You share more. You try to invite him in emotionally, thinking that maybe he just needs time or the right environment to open up. But every time he sidesteps the moment, he's quietly reinforcing a message. He's not here for your depth. He's here for your presence, and specifically for the version of your presence that excites him physically. This is why the relationship often feels stuck. It's not growing because it's not being nurtured. You're planting emotional seeds, but he's not watering them. Instead, the energy always returns to comfort, to routine, to what's easy. And in this case, what's easy is the physical. It's the part of the connection that asks the least of him while giving him the most satisfaction. He doesn't have to wrestle with his own fears or confront difficult truths about himself in order to enjoy your body. But to engage with your heart, your soul, your dreams, that requires emotional bravery, something he's either unwilling or unprepared to offer. Over time, this dynamic creates a powerful imbalance. You're emotionally investing while he remains emotionally absent. You start to carry the weight of the relationship, hoping that if you just show enough love, give enough grace, create the perfect conditions, he'll eventually meet you at the level you're offering. But that rarely happens. Instead, you're left managing his distance, cushioning his lack of effort, and adjusting your expectations downward so that his half-hearted involvement doesn't feel quite so painful. You convince yourself that small gestures mean more than they actually do. A reply to a vulnerable message feels like a breakthrough. A compliment that isn't about your looks feels like proof that he's starting to see you. But these small moments can become distractions from the larger truth. He's not showing up for who you really are. A man who is emotionally invested will naturally want to explore your inner world. He won't have to be begged to listen or prompted to care. He'll be drawn to the unique way you think, the specific experiences that shaped you, the quiet dreams you may not even share with most people. He'll lean in during your difficult moments, not pull away. He'll remember the little things you tell him, not because he's trying to impress you, but because he actually values them. But when a man is only there for the physical, those emotional layers become invisible to him. He's not dismissing them out of cruelty. He just doesn't see them as necessary to the kind of connection he's pursuing. And that is the deepest kind of misalignment. You may start to feel like you have to earn his emotional attention, like you have to prove yourself worthy of being fully seen. But that's not what real intimacy looks like. Real intimacy doesn't require performance. It doesn't make you feel like your depth is a burden or your vulnerability is too much. It welcomes those things. It makes space for them. It recognizes that true connection doesn't happen on the surface and that physical chemistry without emotional resonance is ultimately empty. And no matter how much passion there is in the beginning, it will never be enough to sustain something meaningful if the emotional doors remain closed.